love is precious. We touch and take us home. If you have strong faith, you will stay alive. If you live with love, you shall survive. If you have strong faith, you must stay alive.
A time of sorrow, yeah. A time of judgment, yeah, yeah. Time of sorrow. Got the time to beg, steal, not borrow. Oh no. I said, I thought the world is troubled. Well, all I see are bloody city and bloody town.
Ya know me out to play.
Sister Gracie, me watch the news on the paper, me read humanity.
Just because I great.
Yeah.
Gonna bust bomber through one house I burn down. Innocence in the street I get gunned down. Leaders from the east and leaders from the west. Me want the war for see sun up till sundown. Gonna bust bomber through one house I burn down. Innocence in the street I get gunned down. Leaders from the east and leaders from the west. Me want the war for see sun up till sundown. Leaders from the east and the west, yes. Look on the people, how them helpless. Leaders from the north and the south, yo. Human migration all about now.
A war, a rumors of war. Syria a war, Israel a war, Christian a war, Muslim a war. We tired of this double that war. We tired of this census killing, blood spilling, what they dealing. The leaders of the world, Illuminati, them go dealing. Me see it for myself, prophecy is fulfilling. Chop it, they not in them anywhere.
Leaders from the east and the west, yes.
You say.
Look upon the people, how them helpless. Leaders from the north and the south, yo. Human migration all about now. Gonna bust bomber through one house I burn down. Innocence in the street I get gunned down. Leaders from the east and leaders from the west. Me want the war for see sun up till sundown. Gonna bust bomber through one house I burn down. Innocence in the street I get gunned down. Leaders from the east and leaders from the west. Me want the war for see sun up till sundown. World War peace. Peace in the nation, creation, vibration.
Why them around the world like a gun show? Them not rate the people on it gun show. Why them a war over, we don't know. Babylon kingdom of it fall door. Separation in a this time. Mankind a lose their mind in a this time. Millions a lose them life in a this time. How the hell mankind fi rise in a this time? Tell me now.
Leaders from the east and the west, yes. Look upon the people, how them helpless. Leaders from the north and the south, yo. Human migration all about now. Why so much gonna bust? Why so much premature? Why so much innocent people a get gunned down? The island, they catch the wall of them a run down. And when them come through, all the city burn down. And who feel the pain of the people them? And who feel the pain of the people them? And who feel the pain of the people them? The people them, the people them, the people them.
Greetings, you there with Joe? Things and Times. So we'll bring some conversation to all those out there who listen. We're not detracting, neither subtracting, but we know how to play long divisions. Yes, Mr. Best there with Joe. Things and Times. Yeah. Well, girl, some conversations. We're staying with why and how Islam is on the continent of Africa. You see? So saddle up and just keep it locked. Yeah, we're there with you. So we want to share the fact that social science, yeah, it's a good thing if you bring the people them and be honest and upright. You understand? And social engineering within social science, once the perspective is wholesome, beautiful thing, what it does, it tries to manage change and bring about a direction for people. Within institution, we use it to empower that which we are a part of. And if I was a manager, it wouldn't be attempting. Is that what we want in relation to developing our aims and objectives? So there's so much that we can attempt to do, and there's so much that we have done or have been attempted over the years, over the millenniums. But the detraction or the detractors based on what they were called Christianity, Europeanism, and the continuing love of colonialization is the only thing that Christianity has done to the children of the slave and the continent. Make us domicile. You see, it doesn't matter how much clothes we wear and how much we talk about Jesus Christ. Nothing changed for us. People just leave this life miserable. Generalization, that statement there, you know. Cause me no know. I just know so that we don't do nothing as a people. No sovereignty. Members of a thing called a Commonwealth. No sovereignty. Not a sovereign state. And the Paradise Islands that we have, those Paradise Islands is hardly resorts for our colonial captors from that time till this time. The economy of those islands from us, through us, was sugar and agriculture, period. Cotton, then rum, alcohol. So, examine the Caribbean and examine South and North America. Just examine it. As children of the slaves. See? And then we can look forward at Africa and African leaders and see, measure them up with Melek Al-Shabazz. Did they table an indictment? An indictment in relation to the treatment that we have been receiving. Because it's not just America, North America, South America, and the Caribbean. See? Now this was done by a human being, one of our own, champion. You see? I'll say more about that little more, car. Yeah. Man called Dean Fraser. Sharp like a razor. Blow, brother, blow. So we're gonna bring you some, we're gonna high school. We're gonna bring you some conversation, seriously. We want people to listen keenly. And make your comments them crystal clear. And my mistake last week, because the first part was the identification of the individual. So, pardon me my ignorance of that. Yeah. Mr. Dean Fraser. Do it, yeah. So we're going to go straight into our thing because we have time for lose. Yes, I pray that each and everyone listen carefully and listen with a keen ear. Because when we say we go to high school, because other people that do these things, you see, long before me. But my stage, I'm a Muslim. I'm an African Caribbean, but my liberty, my life, see, my consciousness, my evolution is Islamic. Don't panic. So, whether you want to size it up or you run a mile because that be the case, if you are listening, please listen keenly. Greetings, we're there with you. First round.
Of those three empires, it was only
محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح
listen good enough.
حي على الفلاح الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
We not playing. Listen good.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you. Thank you for tuning in tonight for our program, A Message to the Oppressed. I am your host, Al-Hajj Muhammad Abdullah.
Yes.
Tonight our guest is
Sharif.
Muhammad Sharif Al-Fawdiwa.
My brother,
our topic
listen.
is Islam in Africa, conversion or coercion. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you for having me, brother.
Alhamdulillah.
Make notes. Listen.
One of the key things that we are hearing today, primarily with the uprise, the increase of people accepting Islam, especially amongst people of African descent in the Western Hemisphere, and in particular in North America, is that Islam began in Africa as a slave trading religion, and that Arabs were white, etc. And we want to clarify this. As the founder of the Sankore Islamic African Studies Institute, we find it imperative that we have someone of your caliber to be able to disseminate information for liberation. So,
first off, in order to understand the relationship between Islam and Africa, and between African Islam and the roles that they have played, we have to go back through quantifiable history, what actually happened on the ground. You have to understand that Africa was the victim of colonialism, a systemized takeaway from the African continent. In order for that to have happened, the Europeans had to destroy or denude African history and their sense of self. A part of that attack was the attack upon the only enemy to European civilization was Islamic culture, because the Muslims had established Islam in Spain, as well as establishing Islam in the Byzantine Empire. We actually established our forces in Europe. So Islam was an enemy to European sovereignty. One key thing that occurred in Africa was a desire to divide the African from Islam, and to divide the Arabs from the African and to make it seem as though there was a gulf between the two. But in actuality, this is not the case. Because on the ground, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who 5 years after he was chosen as a prophet, as Allah chose him as a prophet, after the revelation, the first revelation of the Quran came to him when Allah Ta'ala says, Iqra, read in the name of your Lord who created mankind from a single clot of blood. When that verse came down, 5 years after that verse, like all the prophets, the son of the prophets, that he was being persecuted. The religion that he was bringing to the people was disliked, was hated, and the majority of the people in the beginning who accepted Islam were people of the oppressed. Many of them were of African origin. Many of them, not just Bilal, the Mu'adhin, but many of the companions were people of plebeian and African origin. But also, during that same time, there were three major kingdoms that existed during that period. There was the Persian Empire, there was the Roman Empire, and that was the ancient Abyssinian Empire. Of those three empires, it was only the Abyssinian Empire that can actually rightfully claim a connection with the ancient tribe of the Banu Israel, as their history points out, the oral histories points out, as well as the books which have been translated into English from the ancient Guz language dealing with their history, that they are connected with the Banu Israel, and they are connected with the new dispensation of the Banu Israel, which was the teachings of Sidna Isa, Jesus, the son of Mary. Therefore, if they were the true inheritors of that community, they would recognize the prophet when he came, and he would also recognize them, as it says in the Bible, that the scepter would not leave between the paws of the Lion of Judah until Shiloh comes. And that is a prophecy that the Abyssinian church and the Abyssinian people would maintain the traditions of the Banu Israel and the traditions of Jesus, the son of Mary, until Prophet Muhammad, the last prophet, came. 5 years after the revelation came, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said to his people, he said, وفيها يعني في أبسينيا ملكا لا يظلم ناس في بلادها فتحرزوا إليها حتى يأتي الله لكم من فرج. He said in Arabic, and I translate from Arabic to English, he said, in Abyssinia there is a king who is not oppressive to his people. So seek refuge with him until Allah Ta'ala brings you your relief. Consequently, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ sent most of the oppressed among his earlier followers into Abyssinia. This is extremely interesting because it is a repeat of all the traditions of all the earlier prophets. Abraham made his immigration into Abyssinia, or into that area, Kemet. Jesus and his family made this immigration there. Musa made an immigration within the land. Many of the prophets made immigrations in that land to show what is the sacred relationship between Africa and the prophets. That's number one. Number two, the second thing which is important is that it was Allah who chose Abyssinia. Allah could have chosen Rome. He could have chosen Persia. He could have chosen Bahrain, or he could have chosen the people of Hadramaut, Yemen. Allah chose the African people. That alone, that fact alone shows the beginning, the relationship between Africa and Islam, and the relationship between Islam and Africa, and Allah's opinion of the African. You don't find this anywhere in the Bible nor the Torah as it is composed today among the communities who have their so-called Bibles and their Torahs. They don't state explicitly the role of Africa as a place of protection for the revelation. So this is the key thing. That's the beginning of the relationship. And there was also a letter, which we'll probably deal with later, a letter of Prophet Muhammad to the Ethiopian king, which also defined what was God's opinion of the African and the role that he would play until the end of time.
Now, the religion of Abyssinia and other empires, it is commonly referred to as Christianity, Judaism. Now, did the ruler of Abyssinia, was he a Christian, or was he adhering to Judaism?
No.
What did he had to adhere to, and did he convert to Islam, or what was the case?
Well, the Abyssinians, it is no doubt that the Abyssinians, the way they saw themselves, the way they defined themselves, is that they define themselves as the true remnant of the Banu Israel. According to their sacred books in Guz, it says that when Bilqis, who's known as Makeda in their language, in Arabic Bilqis, in the Bible she's known as the Queen of Sheba, in Arabic would be Saba, the kingdom of Saba, which was on both sides of the sea, Yemen as well as Abyssinia, Africa. Allah, there's a verse in the Quran, a chapter in the Quran that just deals specifically with the kingdom of Saba. This queen, Bilqis, came to visit Suleiman, Prophet Solomon, who was the son of David, Dawood. And eventually they married. She accepted the revelation that Allah Ta'ala had given Suleiman, and they had a son. And Suleiman named this his son, according to their traditions, Dawood, or David, right? And of course, in the language of the Abyssinians, they named him Menelik the first, right? According to their traditions, God, or Allah, revealed to Suleiman to take the firstborn sons of all the Banu Israel, including this son Dawood, and send him back to Abyssinia with the Ark of the Covenant. And the tradition would remain there until Prophet Muhammad, the last prophet, came. So they considered themselves members of the Banu Israel. And of course, when Sidna Isa, Jesus, the son of Mary, came with his mission, with the Injil, abrogating the law, and also adhering to the law that Moses brought, but also abrogating certain things, confirming the law of Moses, they also accepted Jesus. In other words, it wasn't a different religion. They saw it as the same way religion. And we say the same thing when the Abyssinian king received the delegation from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He saw this as this was the last dispensation from God. And when he accepted the religion, he accepted to protect the companions of Muhammad, but he also accepted religion, and Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave him the name Muhammad Ahmed. And he's known as Muhammad Ahmed al-Nagasi, or Najashi, which in their language means Nagus, or Nagas, which means king. Yes. So he became Muslim, no doubt about this.
Allahu Akbar. In the studies of community colleges and universities, and primarily in the Pan-African Studies Department, Dr. Yusuf bin Yakanan, Chancellor Williams, Sheikh Anta Diop, Ivan Van Sertima, other scholars have done extensive work. And I'd like to quote to you pertaining to what Chancellor Williams says from his book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, Great Issues of a Race from 4500 BC to 2000 AD. He states on page 22, in the first paragraph, the white Arabs. The relentless searchlights of history were turned on the roles played by both Islam and Christianity in the subjugation of the blacks. This confused many and outraged those who did not pause to distinguish evil men who use religion to disguise their real aims. The unthinking Muslim or Christian would likely believe that his religion is being attacked rather than those conquerors and enslavers who disgraced it in covering their drive for wealth and world domination. Continuing, blacks in the United States seem to be more mixed up and confused over the search for racial identity than anywhere else. Hence, many are dropping their white Western slave masters' names and adopting not African, but their Arab and Berber slave masters' names. The confusion will continue, however, as long as the fact that millions of mulattoes in Arab countries are considered white is ignored, along with the other only fact that countless unmixed, sun-baked, desert-dwelling Arabs are not only brown, but some are very dark in color. All this darkening of the skin in spite of the ages-old tradition of the thick cloth covering the face from the scorching sun. Indeed, not only did mulattoes consider themselves 100% Arab, but jet black Africans, whose forebears were in Arabia for generations, speak Arabic and all call themselves Arabs. Just as black Americans speak English and call themselves Americans. In both cases, neither black Arab nor black American thinks he is white. To repeat, then, blacks are in Arabia for precisely the same reasons blacks are in the United States, South America, and the Caribbean islands, through capture and enslavement. in studying the actual records in the history of the race. Therefore, the role of white Arabs must not be obscured either by their Islamic religion or by the presence of the Africans and Afro-Arabs among them, any more than we should permit white Europeans and white Americans to use Christianity to cover their drive for power and control over the lives of other people. Unquote, pages 22 and 23. How do you respond to that?
Well, first I respond with the question. Did he footnote any statement? Did he give a reference point for any one of those statements?
Yes, he does. Right here he says, in his footnote, he says the term black was given a rebirth by the Black Youth Revolt.
But what point is he footnoting?
See, in regards to pertaining to the white Arabs?
Well, no, the point is he did not footnote a single historical reference. That alone, in other words, he condemns himself. In other words, if we're dealing with history, we have to deal with scholarship. Number one, Chancellor William could not read Arabic. All of our history, the history of West Africa, was written in Arabic. Tariq al-Sudan by Abdurrahman al-Sa'adi, Tariq al-Fatash by Qadi Mahmoud Qati, Tadhkirat al-Nisyan, Infaq al-Maysur. These are all books, seminal books, which the colonialists read and had mastered in order to master our people. Chancellor Williams did not master the Arabic. He read from the colonial officers. Now, the colonial scholars, their whole idea was to denude and to show that Africans were incapable of governing themselves. Consequently, they purposely distorted our history with nothing but historical fallacies. Chancellor Williams inherited from that tradition. He did not footnote any point he made there. He didn't give any single footnote. The fact is this. Qala Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, our Messenger of Allah said, Bu'ithtu il al-aswad wal-ahmar. I have been sent to the red and the black. I've been sent to the red and the black. Al-Qadi Ayad, the judge of Granada, the leaders of the Murabitun army, said in his Shifa of Qadi Ayad, he said, the meaning of this hadith, he said, in al-Arab min al-aswad, li'anna aglaba alwanuhum al-udma. He said the Arabs are included among the aswad, among the Africans, the blacks, because the majority of their skin color is dark. Wa the al-ahmar hum al-ifrinj and wal-ajam. And the red speaks of the Persians and the Europeans. So first off, none of the Arabs, no true Arab considered himself among the European tribes. Every true Arab felt he was a part of the African tribes. That's number one. And it has always been the tradition. There was no divide between Africa and Arabia. The fact is that Prophet Muhammad sent his people to Abyssinia. He didn't send them to Europe, or did he send them to Persia or India. He sent them across the African continent. It has always been a tradition among the leaders of the Banu Hashim to marry from among the Nubian tribes. Abraham alayhi salam did so. Ishmael, his second wife, was so. Half of the imams or the leaders of the Banu Hisham married from the African women, which is a tradition among their people. In terms of his saying, describing the Arabs as slave traders, there were slave traders throughout the African continent, including the Africans. However, a scholar who has more, how can I say, credibility than Chancellor Williams is Sheikh Anta Diop, who authored many books, a Muslim, one of the preeminent Afrocentric scholars. He said in his book, Pre-Colonial Black Africa, on page 98 and 102, he said, as for the so-called Arab invasion of Africa, it is a figment of the imagination. It never happened. Only twice were there foreign armies that entered into black Islamic Africa. 1591 with the invasion of Songhai and the destruction of Timbuktu and the destroying of his library. The army itself was a Portuguese mercenary army sent by the Moroccans. And then in the 19th century by Muhammad Ali, who himself was a Macedonian, an ex-slave himself. So never was there an Arab army that entered into Africa. Where was it? Never happened in history. The Islamization of Africa occurred at the hands of Africans, the armies of the Africans, Askil Muhammad and his army. The people of Takrur who conquered Ghana, which is another misnomer in his book. He says that it was the El Moravids or the Morabitun who conquered Ghana. This was not if he could only read the Arabic and he read the book Al-Masalik wa Mimalik by al-Bakri, he would know that the country that bordered Ghana was Takrur, and Takrur had become Murabitun way before the Lamtuna or the Sanhaja had become Murabitun. They were students of Wazaj ibn Zalu, an African who founded the Dar Murabitun school, and they were their students. These Tukulur, Fulani, Fufulbe, Jula, Mandinka were the ones who conquered Ghana and Islamized Ghana, not Arabs. And that's a historical fact. All of the armies that swept Africa were all Africans. It was a war between Muslim Africans and non-Muslim Africans. The non-Muslim Africans felt that their way of life was as valid, and the African Muslims felt that theirs was valid, and Allah Ta'ala, He decided. They're all Muslims now. And in fact, you'll find that when Islam came, it is then that all the languages in Africa, Mandinka, Hausa, Wolof, Sonic, had all began to be written down in Arabic script. It was then it became literary. It was then that scholarship emerged among the Africans. Books on astronomy, books on ethics, books on philosophy, books on medicine, books on government, all emerged between the 9th, the 10th, and the 19th century, all at the hands of African Muslims. And the African Muslims did not become Arabs. They kept their own African traditions. Thus, when you see the tomb of Askia Muhammad, the founder of the Songhai Empire, is a step pyramid, which shows that they never ever gave up their ancient pharaonic Kemet traditions. Those traditions which were consistent with Islam, they kept them. They kept their personality. And one African scholar, Umar Jah, he said eloquently, he said, Islam is like a clear water that takes on the colors of the rocks that it flows over. Thus, when Islam hit China, it took on Chinese flavor. When Islam hit Andalusia, it took on an Andalusian Spanish flavor. When Islam hit Bosnia and Romania, it took on a European flavor. And of course, when Islam hit Africa, in fact, it hit Africa first. It was the first nation state, unified state to embrace Islam, were the African people. So we were the first. We predated even the Arabs of Mecca. When they were kicking Prophet Muhammad out, it was the Ethiopian king who embraced Prophet Muhammad and the religion of Islam. And in the letter, the letter of Prophet Muhammad to the Ethiopian king defines what Allah Ta'ala would do in Africa, and Allah did it. And it was a succession of nothing but proud, independent, high civilization Islamic government, which stretched from the Red Sea all the way over into the Atlantic, and it jumped over into, during the Atlantic slave trade, into Bahia, Brazil, and gave birth to the slave revolts that marked most of the history of the United States. Yes.
As you mentioned in regards to Kemet, and what is the relationship that Muslims have had and those followers of all the prophets with Kemet? Is Kemet, as we know it today, people are saying Egypt, and as they say Abyssinia, Ethiopia, are they related, and how they related, and what was the relationship with Muslims?
No, it's no doubt that the research that Sheikh Anta Diop have laid out, and his Presence Africaine, and the students who have inherited from him, Rahimahullah, may Allah Ta'ala be merciful to him, the research that he first laid out is true. There is no doubt that ancient Egypt was an African, black African civilization. There's no doubt about that. Only historians who are guilty of clear bias would say contrary to that. He also points out that all of the tribes met there at the Nile Valley, that we were all united there. But contrary to what Chancellor Williams says, Chancellor Williams, he insinuates that it was the Muslims who conquered that civilization. It was not the Muslims who conquered the Kemet society. The Kemet society was conquered by the Romans, Europeans. When the Muslims came, they were conquering the Europeans who were in what is known as Lower Egypt. However, with the destruction of the Kemet society, with its destruction, you saw a scattering of the African tribes with their totem ancestral gods into different regions of West Africa, down into the the Upper Egypt region, and the religion, as Sheikh Anta Diop describes, became fossilized. It no longer had its dynamic element that it had under dynastic Kemet rule. It died. Now, it's no doubt it was an African society. They were Africans. There was no doubt that if you want to understand the African psychic, you must go back to that civilization and understand who we are. However, as Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, هَذَا أُمَّةُ قَدْ خَالَتْ. That is a community which has passed. They will earn what they get, and you will not be questioned for what they've done, nor will they be questioned for what you have done. No.
Alhamdulillah. All praises and gratitude rest with Allah, who has no consort, and we appreciate you disseminating this information for liberation.
Thank you.
Okay. And may Allah, out of His mercy, continue to bless you and your family.
Ameen.
To where information can be disseminated. Ameen. And for the people to be able to pursue knowledge. Ameen. And I thank you, by the grace and mercy of Allah, for being on this program.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi
wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
Inshallah,
Yes.
we thank Allah.
Salam alaikum, my brother. Yeah, we are going still in a classroom. This one now, Religious Hard Talk 2017. Listen carefully, keenly. Conversation, man. Conversation. Listen.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Religious Hard Talk. I'm Ian Boyne. Today we explore Islam. We have with us Islamic scholar Dr. Abdullah Hakim Quick. He is the first African-American to have graduated from the Islamic University of Saudi Arabia in 1979. So,
yeah, you see, when it comes to me now, you know what I mean? And all the brothers and sisters that we are come out. You see? We're not in the closet. We not come with ray and tear and trying to convert people. We show the positive image of Al-Islam and the African man, the black man, and the African Caribbeans who cite Al-Islam. See? So when I go around and try for artificially create an orgasm for myself, or to infatuate other people, or even borrow some alleged authentic thing here, there, and everywhere, and then put them into our psychic because we want to feel that we're doing something. Nah. Brother Sharif was sent abroad, and the abroad that him was sent was into Africa by our Sheikh Abu Bakr. Saint Ahmed Abu Bakr from here, England. And him did extensive studies for more than 10 years among our people and learn classical Fusa Arabic among our people. Reading and writing. He is one. See? So when I borrow them, they're coming out of the same institution of learning that we are all a part of here in the United Kingdom. You understand? We're not trash nothing. You see? And we're going to talk about Muhammad Abdul Donfodio and all these people. They serve a particular place. Osman Donfodio. Them serve a particular place. We did it for the long haul, not the short haul. We're not there for artificial, as I said, orgasms. We're not there with that.
Well-known scholar in the Islamic world. lived for some time in South Africa, has visited over 62 countries, lecturing on Islam. He's based in Canada and has written this enthralling book, Deeper Roots, Muslims in the Americas and the Caribbean from before Columbus to the present. He believes that Islam is our roots as people of African descent, that the slaves who came from West Africa were largely Muslims, and that Islam was being practiced here during the time of slavery. So he's going to explore some of these interesting historical issues today on Religious Hard Talk. Later, we're going to have two Jamaican Muslims also speak on their faith. We thank you so much for your company. Dr. Quick, good to have you. We were supposed to have met some years ago. It didn't work out. I'm very happy that you could be with us this year and to talk to us on the show. So you have this thesis, which some of us are acquainted with through the work of Dr. Afraz, who was at the university here. It is a view that has been contested, the view that a number of our slaves were really Muslims, that even some of the persons whom we thought were Christian, they were Muslim. You know, it wasn't healthy to declare yourself a Muslim during the time of slavery, and right. You know, some person disguised their Islamic practice. But you think that there is solid historical evidence, not conjecture, for the view of a strong Muslim presence in the Caribbean before and during the time of slavery?
Yes. First, I want to thank you for having me on your program. And as an African-American with Caribbean roots, my wife is from Jamaica, from St. Anne's.
Yes.
It's always a homecoming when we come back into the region again, yes. Especially from Canada, because it's freezing now and it's snowing.
It's good to have you.
It's a beautiful homecoming to come back.
Yes.
Especially, you know, to deal with the roots, you know. And 2 days ago, we were up in St. James, in Maroon Town.
You're in Maroon Town?
And we actually visited the historians there, and we traveled around. And, you know, again, this confirms to me, you know, some of the information, you know, that I have been studying over the years.
So there was a strong Muslim presence in Maroon Town in St. James?
Right. You know, and you know, not only did I study in Arabia, but I have a master's and PhD from the history department of the University of Toronto.
That's true.
So this is mainstream history.
Mainstream history,
so the documentation that I'm bringing to you is not just a guess. I'm not trying to twist information.
Yes.
I want to bring you hard facts.
I see.
Okay, religious and non-religious.
Yes.
You know, and so it's important for us to understand how history has been twisted and changed around. And, you know, the very fact that they say Christopher Columbus discovered America,
yes.
you know, when people are living here already,
yes.
you know, shows you that there's something wrong with the whole basis of the history.
Yes.
What we have shown, and I learned from, you know, when I learned the Arabic language, I started running into documents that was actually showing in Arabic Muslims crossing the ocean long before Columbus.
Before Columbus?
Before Columbus, and coming in contact with the people on this side of the world.
Is that so?
One of the documents, Al-Umari, who's a famous writer, he interviewed Mansa Musa, who was a great West African emperor who traveled in 1324 to Mecca. He made pilgrimage. He is considered to be the richest man that ever lived on the face of the planet. He had 15,000 camels laden with gold, because Mali, the Niger River, was a chief source of gold in the world. When he reached Egypt, they said, where do you get this power from? And he said, we are a lineage. And my older brother, Abu Bakr, went across the ocean, meaning the Atlantic, with 2,000 ships, and he never returned. Now, we have traced the writings of these people called Mandinka or Mandingo. The writings are across Brazil. The writings are in Central America. The writings go up into the United States. And Leo Weiner, a Harvard University professor, he wrote a book called Africa and the Discovery of America. He also agrees with this.
He agrees with that?
Yeah, Barry Fell, who wrote Saga America, Harvard University, he also agrees with this. And so what we recognize when you go to Central America, especially Panama, that there were black people there when the Spanish came. And so when the Spanish came, when Balboa came, they said, don't go to that side because there's black people with beards. You know, so don't go there. So the Spanish went, you know, straight up, and they were finding this all over the region. The British, who are always very slick and sly, they said we'll call them black Caribs. So the black Carib people that we now identify as Garifuna. The Garifuna people were on the island of St. Vincent, and they struggled also with the British, and they were exiled to Belize. So if you go to the Caribbean side of Belize, Costa Rica, all the way down to Colombia, there's black people all along that side. And the Garifuna are a distinct people, and they are speaking an African tongue up until now, and many of them are Muslims, and the queen of the Garifuna recognized my book. She lives in New York City now. Yes. And she recognized this work, and many of the Garifuna are returning to their roots. I'll be exploring this, you know, later on in the week, you know, here in the city. Following this, the slavery period now, there's documents coming to this in Arabic language, documents showing the slaves in Brazil. There was a big slave revolt in 1835. The slaves, the Portuguese gave them boats and said, go back home. So they actually went back, and I was 2 years ago in Lagos. I visited the Oba of the Yoruba, who is the highest religious authority of the Yoruba, and he's a Muslim, by the way. And he showed me, I said, what about Africans from Brazil? He said, oh yes, we have a mosque in Lagos called Brazilian Mosque. That's where your ancestors who came here to America, went to America, they returned, and we know who they are. In Suriname, they call them bush blacks. These are Maroons. They're all forms of Maroons. They liberated a territory which is independent up until now in Suriname, which is Dutch Guyana. In Trinidad, the Mandingo Free Society, you know, it is a well-known group. Last year, we had a big celebration in Port of Spain for a person named Yunus Muhammad Bath. And he had a mosque, which we know the location of the mosque. And they freed themselves from slavery. And they actually fed Port of Spain for a period of time, you know, from their plantations. In Haiti, the Haitian Revolution was begun on the plantations. And two of the great leaders, there were many, one was called Macandal, and the other was called Bookmen. These are what is called marabout. A marabout is an Islamic cleric or a traveling scholar.
So Bookman was
Muslim.
Was Muslim.
Yeah, that's because marabout means morabit. That's the Arabic word. Toussaint Louverture, he organized the rebellions. Yes. But he didn't start the rebellions. So Muslims were directly involved in the Haitian rebellions. Coming to Jamaica, the magistrate, Robert Madden, and I have it in my book, Deeper Roots, he reports he was sent by the British government to help the island transfer from slavery to indentured labor. Okay? So he came in and he found some African people who were speaking Arabic. In Kingston. And he had served in Turkey before and in Syria. So he quoted some Arabic to them. And he found out they were hidden Muslims. They had Christian names, but they were communicating to each other in Arabic language to the countryside of Jamaica. And there was a document, and Dr. Afroz, she mentions this. This is a solid thing that she brings out. This is the work, this is the writing of Muhammad Kaaba. And this is in Arabic, and we have this document, you know, where he's clearly writing in Arabic. So these writings are all over the region now. This is recognized in history departments, even European history departments now.
European history departments?
Yeah, that Muslims were here in the slavery period. If you look at the ports of call, where the slaves came from, now this is not hocus pocus. You can see Senegal, Gambia, along the Gold Coast. The major empires in that region were Muslims. The first slave ships that the Portuguese brought was actually they were Wolof, who came from Senegal. And they made a rebellion in Hispaniola, which is now Dominican Republic, and in Puerto Rico and in Panama. So we have evidence all over the region. This is not to say that there were not other nations. We celebrate our relationship. We were all together shoulder to shoulder on the boat. Ashanti, Wolof, Susu, Mandingo, Fulani, Koramanti, Yoruba, shoulder to shoulder. And what we're talking about now is we need to be shoulder to shoulder today. It's not the way to say this one didn't exist or the other one did. We need to recognize, you know, all of our presence,
our contributions,
and stand shoulder to shoulder.
An enthralling historical survey. This is what you will continue to get from Dr. Quick, highly rated Islamic scholar. We take our first break on Religious Hard Talk.
This is a story of old. It is our story, a story untold.
Once upon a time in a land far away, Africa, we lived free.
Blue, black, deep brown, brick, red and sand. Our people multiplied and covered the land. Fulani, Mandinka, Pio, Pulla.
Our griots sang our stories of kingdoms and cities, and the coming of Islam that united our hearts. For we were Muslims.
African Muslims.
Following the call of the Arabian prophet. We spoke Arabic and wrote it. We read Quran and taught it.
We traveled across the deserts and into trade routes. We passed peasants and sultans as we journeyed to Mecca.
We were farmers and blacksmiths. We were merchants and weavers. We were students and teachers. We were princes and leaders.
But that was all in a land far away, Africa, when we were free. For in many different ways, through kidnap and war, we found ourselves shackled and cast out to sea.
And in ships thick with bodies, with tears and with filth, we called out to God, Allah, to free us from our chains.
Long days and long nights, we rocked in those slave ships. Some died of diseases.
Some met death in the water.
But some of us survived. Our fate was to make it.
To these lands far away, the new world, as slaves.
So, on slave auction blocks, our captors renamed us, stripped us and sold us to work the plantations so far from home, where they beat us and lynched us, shamed us and cursed us as savages to this civilized land.
And yet, through the terror, the pain and the darkness, a bright flame flickered, a flame strong and proud. The memory of Africa and what we had seen and where we had come from and who we had been.
Songs of childhood still beat in our blood. The words of the Quran engraved in our hearts as we traced its letters with sticks in the sand. And we would
pray in brief stolen moments, washing with water, facing the Qibla. We remembered the fast and the ways of our people, and we clung to who we knew we still were deep inside.
For inside we were scholars, students, teachers, traders and weavers, princes and leaders. And in this new land, our fortunes differed.
Some of us ran away. Some died while trying. Some lived as maroons. Some died as slaves. Some became famous. Still more were unknown. Some stayed in the new world. Still others went home.
Those of us who stayed toiled and struggled, sweated and labored to build our new homes. The lands called Trinidad, Jamaica and Cuba, Brazil and Antigua, Virginia and Georgia.
We had children and families that went to our graves, and to our dark graves we took that proud flame, and the memory of whom we had been long ago.
For we had been scholars, students and teachers, traders and weavers, princes and leaders.
We left barely a trace, just a memory, a name, and the shadows of our way in an old Creole prayer.
But that was all in a time long ago, when we were slaves.
And you are our children, and the children of our children, blue, black, deep brown, brick red, and sand.
You met, multiplied, and covered the land. Fulani,
Mandinke,
Puel,
and Pular.
You will again sing our stories, and remember the tales of when you were scholars, students and teachers, traders and weavers, princes and leaders. But this is a story of old, and it is our story, your story, a story now told. For this is a story of old, and it is your story, a story now told.
In the meantime, between time, you're in tune to the sounds of poetic pilgrimage, alongside the Abyssinians, seeking that land far away. Listen, tune.
There is a land far away. There is no night, only day. And the angels prostrate, 'cause they're bathing in this race. I want to see that land that's far away. You know that place where there's laughter, joy and play. No corrupted system or the innocent victims. No more senseless killings and the blood that is spilling. And the rulers doing nothing but establishing pain, selling souls and civilians to secure the reign. Those who speak up the truth are deemed insane. You know the spirit is satanic. They wanna take over this planet, but the hourglass is our time. Or hail the sublime. The earth is changing, cautious using patience. They sacrifice what's sacred and making idols to replace it. I fear not of man, my soul is native, moving close to the divine. In the land far away, it's that land far away, that land far away.
There is a land far, far away, where there's no night, there's only day. Look into the book of life and you will see that there's a land far, far away.
I climb the 7 heavens to praise my Lord in heaven. 5 times out a day, we're humbled by his presence. Millionaires or a peasant, we're all seeking his essence. To reunite with the one who gave us life and learn his many blessings. We're learning many lessons of lands far away where prophets praise salam is what the angels say. There's no pain, no bullets spray, no acid rain, no apple grave, no slums like in Bombay. This land far away where troubles fade away. Allah done took the pain away. Maybe we'll stargaze, get high without the haze. No prayers for brighter days or dreams to chase, will be amazed by the beauty of God's face. Wherever land beyond the stars, Mars, Saturn and Mars, paradise unseen, genital for those please. 'Cause this life is but a dream, yeah. This life is but a dream, yeah, yeah.
There is a land far, far away, where there's no night, there's only day. Look into the book of life and you will see that there's a land far, far away.
I seek his guidance, I seek his face, looking for the land far away, ay, 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 ay. Where children play, everything is okay in the land far away.
He made us equal as people, to seek his light and will not seek no evil. And after this life there will be no sequel. So praise your Lord, what you're waiting for.
I
far away. That there's a land far, far away. That there's a land far, far away. That there's a land.
Yes. Yeah, man, so we do a thing. You see? Now we have to do something for my DJs, them, you know, because them out there, so them hold on to something. I mean, I don't know what them hold on to, you know, but I know see them hold on to something. So I have to disturb them and send this special request to all the DJ them from Tippertone, Roddy Bone, Hutchie Pink, Super Dan, Sean Rankin. Listen, this is just a diversion, you know. Just listen, man.
Now, no indicted feelings.
You see what I mean?
Now, no indicted feelings. Then I and I brethren kind of love when I sing.
And the reason me do that is that them a wait for we, for saddle up and get the jockey them riding and fit and everything, for come and misuse the people them and take for their money. You understand? And false hype. You see? But we are going to train for we man them. You see? And set the thing proper. You understand? Just a little bit more patience. Yeah. Listen.
Now, no indicted feelings.
True.
Then I and I brethren kind of love when I sing.
Sing.
I did part 1 and here come the part 2.
Yeah, true.
DJ, you look for me. DJ, you look for me. I want to DJ, want the lecture, but DJ, you look for me. DJ, you look for me. I want to DJ, want the lecture, but to me telling DJ, then yes, it buckle up. DJ, take it to what? I want beat me up. Say, who no one lick? Yes, them want cut. Me no say them can't lick, and me no say them can't cut. But the first one fi face me, ma go get dust. DJ, you look for me. DJ, you look for me. I want to DJ, want the lecture, but DJ, you look for me. DJ, you look for me. I want to DJ, want the lecture, but me this sorry for the youth. When the professor nuts, that's why me tell him say Lord fi come out of the bus. But no, him join the gang. I want beat me up, I go and buy 2 tire and give fi pump up. DJ, you look for me. DJ, you look for me. I want to DJ, want the lecture, but DJ, you look for me. DJ, you look for me. I want to DJ, want the lecture, but Tiger half a lick and him so weak. The junks sit on your mouth, they wanna enjoy it. DJ, you look for me. DJ, you look for me. I want to DJ, want the lecture, but DJ, you look for me. DJ, you look for me. I want to DJ, want the lecture, but charming want make you vex when me tell us to go sleep. A woman fish if it take out me and play. DJ, you look for me. DJ, you look for me. I want to DJ, want the lecture, but DJ, you look for me.
And you see some of them have bad minds, so here what we do.
Now big request to all leaders who try to overthrow righteous people. Man, evil. Mind what you're doing.
Excitement, man.
Mind what you're doing. Hear it. When the devil send no come tell him no buck up on God. Devil send no come tell him no buck up on God. Devil send no come tell him no buck up on God. Devil send no come tell him no buck up on God. Buck up on God and with the rod in 9 hand. Them buck up on God and with the rod in 9.
You see, and me they go buck up on, you know. You see, and them say, what happened to him? He gone crazy. Watch out.
Now ambition is one of the greatest key to success. So you man the wise and be progressive. Stitches her. Follow me again now. Come now. Yes, it a me planet, a me great ambition. Yes, it a me planet, a me great ambition. Yes, it a me planet, a me great ambition. Yes, it a me planet, a me great ambition. When I was just a little boy, I asked my mama, what will I be? Will I be a singer or a MC? And this is what she says to me. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future is not ours to see. Stitchy just wait.
See? So we just have to just make you know so that we can dust them out anytime, you know? Yeah. So now we are talking to the adults them now in a culture style. Listen. Pay attention, you know. This is me, full.
Which put I go take some of them across River Jordan.
We'll go back to the conversation. So you listen to these rhythms properly. Listen to what is being said. I tell you, I beg you. Mistake me make, you know. This is where we're supposed to go first and then we go down this. So listen, Africa. You understand that part there? You listen.
Africa is a black man kingdom.
Can't stop, sister. Scene.
Don't you know it's true? Africa is a black man kingdom. Africa is a black man glory. So I want to go. I want to go. I want to live in Nigeria. I want to sit up on the king throne in Africa. In Africa.
Mr. Linville Thompson.
Yes, I'm sure I'm going. I don't know.
Things and times. Expressing his culture.
Yes, I'm sure I'm going.
Roots. Impeachment.
I
Yes. I want to hear this, you know. Listen this here. My wrong gone somewhere, but come back here right now. Hold it.
Negative attitude towards Africa. In San Francisco, on African Liberation Day, Brother Walter Rodney, an African historian, noted both the importance of African Liberation Day in terms of our African identity and some of the root causes for our problem of identification.
I have met brothers and sisters who say that their mother tongue, quote unquote, is French, Spanish, Dutch, Portuguese, as well as English, which we speak. And because of this, we have a problem of identification. We do not know whom we are. And that is why this gathering is of great symbolic importance.
You see why me go get that? Because I want to tell someone still, you know, give thanks for the comments, but we're not caught up in that. See, the indigenous language, come on, man. Come on, let's be sensible. Seriously. Yes, we're there now. Gone again. We are playing that on Thursday, man. Thursday we are going to that side of things. You understand? Yeah, listen. And Walter Rodney are for we. You see? There's a whole heap of them. You understand? A whole heap of them. And him go to Tanzania. You see? Dar es Salaam University also. See? Because we represent we. And we are trying to connect ourselves, you see, with the continent. The continent not connect itself to us. We are always been making the steps. You understand? Cross over rivers and sea and sky. You know? Yeah, and that we are doing. And we was doing that long. See? So Africa owes a lot of apologies and them need to move fast. But them can't do nothing for my grandparents. Them gone. Though I see them, they are alive. Though I see them not, they are alive with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Which boat I go take some of them across River Jordan?
Sure.
Which boat might take them across River Jordan?
This is not a Johnny come lately. Maybe late on the airwaves.
I beg you take another boat. Yes, take another boat. Get ready, take another boat. Grief and destruction. No come and this your boat. Cause a float we want people. Which boat I go take some of them across River Jordan? Which boat might take them across River Jordan?
Mighty culture roads. On the tip of two one could have rushed them. John Sinclair. And best.
Take another boat. I thought we want people. So no come and this your boat. You know you feel the corruption. Devil eyes, oh you a go enter. Devil eyes, oh you a go enter. Devil eyes, oh you go enter in a Zion.
It was some sound man them out there say, hey wait, watch this, greedy woman. Culture the roots. Mighty Culture Roots.
Woman, you love me.
All these groups here supposed to be honored like the Diamonds, you know what I mean? Is a vibration. You understand? Hey, me I tell you, man. Listen. Hey, family. Big me up, man. Bibo. Mighty Culture Roots, I tell you. I want them to get an award. All of them, all 4 of them.
Friday morning cool. Get your squeeze warm. Saturday morning she gives
Jermaine.
She gives me a warning. Sunday morning cool. She just a screw door. She know as Monday morning come she gone. No one know where she gone. All I know she run away.
The Sweet Revolutionaries played under what? The direction of Jermaine. I tell you, listen. Song like Bruce Radish, not true. Ah. Go on. Musicians.
Friday morning cool.
Sweet, innit?
Get your squeeze warm. Saturday morning.
Oh, we're going to take that, this. I go turn on and try find a people them to try to make some euros from and change with something. You want a mad star, I tell you. You take the roots and you go play what? Mad and punk rock type of thing. Cha. Listen. A black man thing this. Me no know about them other man, them, you know. Them black too. But they what? I think them called brutish. Am I prejudiced? Definitely. What am I? An African slave youth. Greedy woman, Mighty Culture Roots. Settle high grade, bright lights, navigator postcode. Can't find Aisha. Listen. Everybody think that punchline there was Sowells alone. No man, Jermaine, him know. Dean Fraser, him know.
Friday morning squeeze warm. Saturday morning.
Ride it, ride it. Settle high grade, settle man. What happened to you? Yeah, I know, say you love it.
She just a screw door. True, she know as Monday morning come she gone. No one know where she gone. All I know she run away. She gone.
See the bars them? Level. So you're there on a conscious ride, you know? Yeah, man. Sweet. Study as we go. Instruments and players.
Get your squeeze warm. Saturday morning, she gives gone. No one know where she gone. All I know she run away. She gone until Friday come again. Whoa.
Touch them and touch them, I tell you, sweet.
Woman, you love me.
Mighty Cultured Roots, played by the Sound Kara. Things in Time, Cultural Expression. Mr. Best at the control. Ouch! Yeah. We are say, I agree. Natural. Bright light, spotting bright. Power Squad Navigator. Oh. Aisha can't be found. Yeah. You see? So we have some bad man them out there, you know, them sad. You understand? So you what happened to them when them go on bad. A Cultured Roots. You understand me? Yeah, man. We not deal with them punk rock. Yes, listen. Cultured Roots. Continually. You know, say, for the last how much year, all the parents them, all our ears them, I get devastated news and information and everything that we son, our daughter, our father, you know, our boyfriend, our partner, dead. You see, Rahan Charles, nothing happened. You see? And the mother suffer, the whole family suffer, you know. You think so that gone off the radar just because nobody in attack. See? This is how we behave. Things happen, it get highlighted, some people jump on it just to get a little spotlight and popularity for themselves. You know? Ill-treating the situation, monopolizing on the situation to set themselves. Foolishness. That situation there, family traumatized, family hurt, family ruined. See? Yeah, stress related problems, health problems. You understand? And coroner, damn stupid report. But one of our sons have died. See? This is the thing. And we move on, and we move on, and we move on. But the said thing is still here. It's still here. And many of you cast votes for unsurety again and again. We don't see nothing through. Again and again and again. But we meet up, go to church, and then finish up a cemetery. And then we have to take out a mortgage at the cemetery. And then we come home and we depart. And those families need support. They need counseling, they need support. But before a week go past, we hear of others. We hear of others. But we keep moving, we keep moving. And everyone needs support. Why we treat ourselves so shadow? Sir Collins have passed, and he was looking for justice for his family and all the other families of the New Cross massacre. And he was a beacon looking for justice, looking for something, looking for a resolution, looking. Just like the Lawrence family, how many years? And me come here and me I say, Muslim. And some people I say, that's not adequate. Because without being born again and the blood of such and such, nothing will work. Stay on that. Stay on that, man. Listen. Churchill, Mighty Cultural says, no mama, don't cry. But she have to cry. She has to cry, and she will cry. She'll cry today, tomorrow's tomorrow, she will cry. Mama will cry. And a real father will cry. But mama definitely will continue to cry. Listen carefully. Mighty Cultural Things and Times, Cultural Expression, Mr. Best under lockdown. Yeah.
A few weeks ago, he was riding high. Join guns at his brother for nothing at all. Oh, mama, I know you used to warn him. Take it till him gone down a cemetery. Oh, mama, I said you once gone down a cemetery. Oh, mama, I see you once gone down a cemetery. I send them take off a 4-5 matic off his hip. Oh, and then them bury him in a boat box called casket. Oh, I know he's dead. There is nothing you can do. Oh, cemeteries were made for bad boys too. Oh, mama, I say you want some gone on a cemetery. Oh, mama, I say you want some gone on a cemetery. Oh, boy.
Listen, man, classic. Revolutionize. Get them hands there. Touch your soul, man, touch your soul.
A few weeks ago, he was riding high. Oh, drawing guns at his brother for nothing at all. Oh, mama, I know you used to warn him. Oh, take him till him gone down a cemetery.
Here we go!
Now we come to the payoff.
Now we come to the payoff.
This one coming straight from out of the dancer. This one coming straight from out of the dancer.
Yeah, man, of the roots once again. Rockers reggae music.
Oh, mama, I say you want some gone on a cemetery. A few weeks ago, he was riding high. Oh, join guns at his brother for nothing at all. Oh, mama, I know you used to warn him. Oh, take him till him gone down a cemetery. Figure belly, I said them take off a 4-5 matic off his hip.
Yeah, man, of the roots once again. Rockers reggae music.
We're gonna run now. Judge already know where you are gonna run. You can't run away. Run to the sun. Fire burn up there. Run to the moon. Blood a run out. Run to the rock. The rock a tumble down now. Run to the sea. They say you refuse. So where you are gonna run when the master talk you? Where you are gonna run? I wanna know where you are gonna run when Judge already know where you are gonna run. You can't run away. You take spacecraft. You take submarine. You take aeroplane. You even take sleeping pill, but you cannot conquer. Whoa. You can't run from Jah. Now where you go? Make your decision. You take aeroplane. You take spacecraft. You take submarine. You even take sleeping pill, but you cannot conquer. Whoa. You can't run from Jah. No where you go. Make your decision right now. Whoa. Where you are gonna run when Judge already know where you are gonna run. I wanna know where you are gonna run when the master talk you. Where you are gonna run, you can't run. Where you are gonna run when Judge already know where you are gonna run, you can't run. Run to the sun, fire burn up there. Run to the moon, blood a run out, Lord. Run to the rock.
Yeah, man, of the roots once again. Rockers reggae music.
The sea refuse. So where you are gonna run when the right time come now? Where you are gonna run? I wanna know where you are gonna run when the master talk you. Where you are gonna run? You can't run. Where you are gonna run when Judge already know? Where you are gonna run? Lightning.
What do you think I can, DJ?
See that? Oh! Well, here it is. Original than the outside dog out if I put the whole iron on them. Me can't live in a peace, got the whole of them. Inform of them and them a cause problem. Chop it!
Yes. Yo, this is a special request to the young ladies, you know what I mean? Man call Mr. Luciano. Listen.
Original than the outside dog out if I put the whole iron on them. Me can't live in a peace, got the whole of them. Inform of them and them a cause problem. Well, here it is. Original than the outside dog out if I put the whole iron on them. Me can't live in a peace, got the whole of them. Inform of them and them a cause problem. Chop it!
What do you think I can, DJ?
See that? Oh! At it.
Believe me, no man.
There's grudge and hate, wars and rumors of wars all over the place. Where there should be happiness, there's grief and bitterness. So much sorrow and sadness on people's face. But why should we live this way?
Question.
Where is the love? I say, why do we live so wrong? I'm suffering poor. Poverty, it's knocking at the poor man's door. Some live in luxury, having things galore, while some have nothing at all, sleeping on the floor. Oh, tell me why, tell me why. Okay, really wanna know. Yeah. Where there should be love, there's grudge and hate. Wars and rumors of wars all over the place. Where there should be happiness, there's grief and bitterness. So much sorrow and sadness on people's face. But why should we live this way?
Well, when I can't
see that? Oh!
Believe me, no man.
Nothing. Oh, yeah. Nothing. Young girl. Ooh, a pretty young girl. Walking up the street. Oh, you're looking
I don't deal with man. I don't go to Manchester or Mandeville. And I believe things are going to happen. I don't use the word manifest. And if there is a problem, I don't use a manual. You understand? I don't even have no manners in us. And this DJ is very talented. A lot of them are hypocrite and they don't like him. Here we go!
Yeah. Nothing. Young girl. Ooh, a pretty young girl. Walking up the street. Oh, you're looking so sweet. Can I walk with you? Hold my hand. Can I walk with you? Please understand. I'm not the Jedi with you are. Not the Jedi with you are. Yeah. Not the Jedi with you are. Oh, yeah. My heart aches every day when you pass my way, yeah. And I don't say hello, not because I don't wanna say so. Oh, pretty young girl, say hello. Oh, pretty young girl, ooh, how I love you so. And I teach you that when you are, and I teach you that when you are, yeah. Oh. And I teach you that when you are. How I love you so. How I need you so. Ooh.
Yeah, we touch up your soul, innit? Yeah, lots of that. I'm a veteran. Scratch. Mr. Lee Perry, upsetters. No, upsetter.
I don't go to Manchester or Mandeville, and I believe things are going to happen. I don't use the word manifest, and if there is a problem, I don't use a manual. You understand?
Veteran.
Tipper Town, and I got to make it be known. Big up the one like Roddy Bone, Ochi Peng, and the Black Roses massive.
Yes. So we there upon a thing where we try to show that we sharp. We'll tear people's heart apart. Yeah. So, social engineering attempt to manage social change and regulate future developments and behaviors. Ms. C said that we can attempt to do these things through the moral drive of Al-Islam. And that's because those of us who have tried to assimilate and integrate, not just with what you get me, mate, you know what I mean? And all that stuff is our accountability and our responsibility towards ourselves is being found wanting. And consumerism, is that a word? You know, we just feel, it would appear that we seem comfortable just being consumers. You know, and we respond constantly after being hurt, wounded, and in this time now, when I pay attention again with this SOS, with this stop and search, sectioning and so forth, and what that does is put our generation, our changing generation, in disturbances, because they be traumatized, they become a victim of society, and the same law enforcement that they're for society, for everybody, is using us as a beating stick, using our children as fodder. And having to find a way of adjusting to that type of brutality and discrimination and racism is very difficult when we structuralize ourselves as yet. So in terms of graduates in relation to our population, and since we are consumers and we're in a different millennium and information technology is ruling the world, and our children are not behind, but they're made to be behind because of the way in which they're treated. You know, we have depression, we have social conflicts, and we have people who have been racially abused for as long as we know ourselves. So a person like me now, when I look for compromising, but I'm saying that the black family, our families, us, we need to take some time out and really look at ourselves, at our evolvement, how we have evolved, how our people have evolved throughout the diaspora. And we will recognize a lot of things. And one hurtful part is that we'll see that we try to assimilate ourselves based on Christianity, based on colonial powers. And we've taken and joined forces within that colonial structure and became Christians. And we love it more than the people them who actually own the thing. We have systematically and culturally compromised. And some of it is just negative because we didn't even know so that we were compromising. Because remember something, we've all received the same education. We have all received the same education. But without having any recognition of self, and some of us who haven't paid attention to our great revolutionists and our activists, that's why we have integrated and compromised ourselves. And then there's another lot who decided that them not pay attention to their ancestors. Them just want to talk now about ancestors. But you see, my ancestor start first in my family. Yes, and my grandparents, and my great-grandparents and my grandparents. Because them set a standard for how I am to be shaped and what my life expectancy should be. So I have something to strive for. But then they're the ones who created the foundation that make me to exist. Along with the Almighty God, because our God give me the life. But you see, how we live and shape ourselves, not as a people who have a culture, not as a people who have a sovereignty, not a people who have them dignity already, but as a people who are trying to find themselves because we are children of slaves. And we've never been allowed to be free. If we were allowed to be free, we've been allowed to have our names, and before we get to our names, we'll be told exactly where them take we grandparents them from. And we would not be given an ultimatum. We're being given aid and support if we wanted to repatriate to the continent and to the areas. Because it's like a desert, in it. There's someone just drop you somewhere like a desert now, and then just leave you there. What are you going to do? So them know where them take a great proportion of people them from. We just need to be respected by Britain. We need to be respected by Britain. Not to be told by their people, it's been so long ago. We need to be respected by Britain. We can't be talking about indigenous languages or language when there's languages on the continent. We can't try to stipulate these things because some individual believes, or individuals believe, that this is a good platform for an argument based on that kind of thought process. Nah. That come like them boy, them man, the individuals, the America, call themselves the House of Consciousness, that decides that it is a good thing to do to get some brownie points. Later for that, the ones who know these things or know of these things should be the ones that was encouraging their parents and others who have knowledge to pursue us in terms of education. God, to talk about language, you also talk about education. You talk about teaching people, giving people opportunity to learn. Not tell you about indigenous languages because someone wants to be a Christian and someone wants to deny that Al-Islam has nothing to do with us, because wherever they're getting their sources is that it is foreign. See? So we need to get off of that. I'm not on that. You understand? I big up my grandparents. I big up people's grandparents because it's them that made the journey by force. And it's them that survive the journey and recognize human qualities and dignity and set a level for us to survive morally as a people. See? So those people them who say that them did, especially in the Caribbean, that them fought for our independence, some of them were sincere. Others were just compromising with their colonial bosses. That's why the islands are what they are. They're tourism, the tourist holiday outposts. And we are the servitudes for those outposts. It's not there we come from. It's there we were taken to grow crops for the United Kingdom. That was it. And the people them who run those plantations and govern us and owned us, those people were awarded hundreds of thousands of dollars from various banking sources and government, this British government, that amount to millions. We benefited not. And the only person that we know in our time that said that, that something needs to be done in relation to the black man and woman, children of the slave, was Malik Al-Haji Malik Al-Shabazz, Malcolm X, Amawali. He felt that an indictment should be placed at the United Nations against all of these slave catchers. And he spoke to many African heads in relation to this. So whilst we have been showing the skirmish with the Nation of Islam, what is oftentimes being forgotten was his mission on his return from Hajj. And it should be also be understood, it wasn't so late in the day that he had this on his mind and he was rallying up the troops and making inroads. There were several other occasions that he visited Africa, the continent. And there were several other times that he visited Arabia. You see. So we're talking about information, people's contact, and no compromising, and respect, and sharing of aims and objectives. Not trying to get several $1 million. No. What them call that thing if? There was a song, something dollars. But that wasn't the case. That wasn't the journey. That wasn't the plight to ruffle up some money and we can have some offices. No. It's about the vision, the view, and then what action needs to be taken, would be needed. And he felt strong about it. We've been detracted from that. Because the African at home never tabled nothing in the United Nations to free and bring home its people. But Abu Wali, Al-Haji, El-Malik, El-Shabazz, Malcolm X did. But before that could bear fruit and come into fruition, he was taken from us. It was taken from us. Stokely Carmichael, Kamitori, Walter Rodney, these were the visions. If our ancestors were Christians, then it wouldn't be the Caucasian who come on the continent teaching them or teaching us about Christianity. And it would be very strange that we would have a Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and Paul, and all these people, all these names. And we don't even know if these are people, these names, on an indigenous language, continent of indigenous languages. And we weren't part of the evolution, our construction of German, Latin, giving birth to what we call, has been called English. We weren't a part of all of that. Neither were we part of this Constantinople. We weren't part of none of these things. So for black people, us, to feel so proud in them speaking, to make it seem that it is ours, and it's a compromise, is that we don't know no better. And we can be excused. You know why we can be excused? Because we are the ones in the diaspora. We're not the one on the continent. We're not the ones on the continent. And we who can be and should be excused, there's a very small percentage of us that take that on board. But there's been a hard-fought battle, intellectual battle, mythology battle, to keep our people away from Al-Islam. And it had nothing to do with the fact that we have to learn, that we should be learning, and we would understand much better having mastered or reading the Arabic language. It had nothing to do with that. It just point us in the never direction. And that's why the Crusaders went straight into Palestine, to Al-Quds, because they wanted to streamline the thing that them are put out there. And they didn't want anything that would give light to something else, rather than theirs. And up to today, they're still afraid of that. So them try for nasty up Muslims. Them can nasty up Al-Islam. I try to tell somebody today, look and see, listen carefully, look back and think. When the politicians, them, whether it's America or whether England, them don't ever use the word Al-Islam. They must say Muslims. The closest them get to that is when them start use this ISIS group that them formulating, this ISIS and this and that. Them say Islamic State. Right? And we need, some of our people that do spend time studying or reading need to ask, why is that? And some would turn around and say it's because of the amount of money that the Arabs, them, the Saudi Arabians, not Arabs, the Saudi Arabians, the Sauds, pay to Britain and America and Europe every so many years for whatever, and them spend so much money on weapons of mass destruction. A serious thing. Now, we're not in all of that skirmish because that's just something else. We're in the liberty of the thing. So our pursuit of growth, not expectation of growth, can be seen. Our application to life can be not recognized, can be seen. This technological age that we're in, our children is remarkably bright. I'm going to have to say it like that because they're on top of that. They're in it. But we're not there guiding them, protecting them first and then guiding them. To where? To the continent. They're being influenced by many sources that we still haven't configured those sources. And we haven't got any independent rights of our own to even tailor-make some form of education to then turn around and say to yourself, you know what? If this is how you're going to deal with our children, this is how we're going to deal with them. Because they're ours. And I'm talking of England. I'm speaking of England. And we have money, but we don't have trust. That's me. That's my take on this. We have money, but we don't have trust. And then we have a lot of people that just arrived in the last 15 years, and they're upon economics. They're not upon education development. They're not on social development. They're upon economics. And maybe they're good at it. Maybe they're good at economics. Maybe they are. But for me, you jump too far. Because if we don't get socially structuralized, if we don't develop love and harmony, which brings about trust, because you can't tell someone you love them and you don't trust them. Why? That's an evil person. I have to say it like that. You can't tell a person that you love them but you don't trust them. I love you but I cannot trust you. What type of sense is that? If my daughter tell me say that she have a boyfriend or someone that same like her and all of a sudden him start say that he's in love with her, but him can't trust her. Me want to know if he's talking about trust in terms of a secret. In terms of secret. He's withholding something. That kind of trust him I talk about. Me particularly, I'm saying that we just need to get to that stage where we're loving each other and we're trusting each other. So we can have our own agendas, not based on what the society and the system and the politician then want us to do or they throw at us. So institution of learning should have been one of those. Supplementary education is what our parents offered in the first instance from 1947. That type of mentality was here among our people, our parents and our grandparents in this country, the ones that come up here to help restructure this place after their war. And they did that among themselves. And the children that them they didn't, some of them that bought and some that was born here. Because they didn't bring the children up with them. They couldn't do that. They couldn't even afford to tell the people them have children. It's years later that them conjured up some money to partner and sent for children. Those who had children. A whole heap of lighting we had to do. A whole heap of, what Bruno call it, duck and diving. We had to do. But nevertheless, we did those things. We have a famous church on Holloway Road in Islington that came out of all of that and looked after the community. Not just religiously, because they were able to establish a school also. But social development, they brought to us a place that we could have met and discussed any issues that was taking place in relation to how we've been treated, housing, police mistreatment and thuggery mistreatment up and down the place. And then touch up our souls, our spirit. Give us some God-fearing information and advice. Yes, and we all took it for the betterment. That establishment still exists. Because their heart and understanding was about us. No compromising. And tomorrow's tomorrow us. We're lacking that. That's what I am saying. In many cases, we are visionless. Until an incident occurs, everybody have a whole heap of ideas. And everybody know why it happened, but no one know how it could have been prevented. Because since you know how it happened, shouldn't you have a system already in place to tell us, listen here, do this. So that won't happen. We're the most informed people. And yet still we don't do nothing for ourselves. We know everything about that man's book. And we can't configure how to have a life and leave him, leave them. We are good detractors. And here's the problem. I'm going to show you right now where the problem is. The big, big problem. And I don't know how we got into that. This big problem. I tell you. This problem here. And our children can sort this problem out, but we won't want to listen to them. This Ham, Shem, and Japheth. We who have decided to follow our slave masters and then round about funny stories. We accept somehow down the road, we don't accept Adam and Eve. I don't know how we get to confused, because now we are dealing with this Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and Ham supposed to see his father's nakedness. Now hear the story, because I not make it up. I'm going to do this every time I go through things. And my father was drunk. Listen to this, carefully. And when he wasn't drunk, when God teach him how to build an ark, how to build something he never knew nothing ever about. He couldn't even dream it. But yet still, the Almighty God chose him, taught him how to build this ark. Noah, I'm speaking. Noah, alayhi salam. Now here come the party now, which they don't even tell you about the son who refused to pay attention to him father. He might do other things and say, well, no, I can't see what you're doing, and I don't want to be laughed upon that. So he's one of them stayed away, but them only talk about these about 4. One of them stayed away. Yeah. No, they're speaking about 3, sorry. They don't emphasize on the 4th one, but he stayed away. The flood came and everything. Before the flood coming, father go look him and say, listen, you know I love you so much. You're my son. Whether it's the first one, and him speaking to him, we'd have to read all the verse of the Quran for that. But he pleaded with him to come. Him son tell him, like I would say to my father, Chuck, I go up on the highest mountain, and I go climb the top of this tree. You know what I mean? And the water now reach me. Me all right. And then my father looked for me and said, hey, listen, are you hearing what I'm telling you? Which tree? And then I said, all right then. Since he's trying to say where the tree now work, I go up on a mountain. I will tell him that, I said to him straight away, listen, Dad, since you say that this tree now work, I go up on a mountain. So if that mountain is Kilimanjaro, you know what I mean? Well, it's not the Alps, because I don't know where it is, but I will climb that one day. You see? And let's tell him that's what I'm going to do, you know what I mean? And then he says, that's not going to work, son. You understand? This water is going to drown everything. It's going to cover everything. So I just tell him that, seriously, I'm all right. I'm going to be all right. And father gone. Hurt, very hurt. Because he knew from God exactly what's going to happen. But this is the same person that somebody going to tell me, say, and tell us all, say, and we're following it, that him go get drunks now through happiness and everything. One who is chose by God. Just like Dawood, is chose by God, but yet still him lust after him friend, him saw him friend wife body. Right? She was showering or bathing or something. And him see her body, him say, wow, wicked. And